You know, there's three types of agents of Satan. The first agent is that one which works for Satan. They know they work for Satan and they want to work for Satan. The second agent is that doesn't know he works for Satan but is working for Satan. And the third agent is obviously demons and fallen angels. And today I'm going to talk to you about um, something that happened recently, and it has to do with the firing of a very prominent exorcist, Catholic exorcist, here in the D.C. area. He was the exorcist, I believe the chief exorcist over Maryland and over the D.C. area, and was recently fired because he spoke about in regards to UFO. He called UFOs what they actually are, and he called aliens what they actually were. They're demons. Okay, so this man, this exorcist, Catholic exorcist, actually went on a podcast, I believe, and he talked about the fact that these aliens were demons. So, back in 2015, 2016, Father O'Morph, which was the chief Catholic exorcist over there in Rome, he spoke about the corruption within the church. He said that Satan had entered the Catholic Church. And in fact, this is something that, Malachi Martin wrote about in his book, Windswept, Windswept House is the name of the book. And in it, he wrote about some kind of ceremony that was held in the Vatican and in, I believe, North Carolina or so, where the simultaneous rituals happen to enthrone Satan at the Vatican. So he wrote about this in his book, Windswept House, about real life church figures. He says, according to the accounts associated with Malachi Martin, no cardinal was ever publicly or definitely identified. However, if you look it up, if you Google this information, a name will come up. I'm not going to tell you the name because this is allegedly. So it says over the years, various authors and commentators have speculated about possible individuals, but largely based on interpretation, rumor, and attempts to identify fictional characters from the Martin's novel Windswept House in real life church figures. Martin himself remained a primary source of the allegation, and no official church investigation has been confirmed. So he wrote about this in a book, and he talked about, because obviously things like this happen, that if you say something, they'll kick you out of the church, or the Catholic Church. He made it a noble, and so what happened to him was that he created this noble, and he talked about the enthronement of Lucifer at the Vatican, actually the chapel, the Pope's chapel. Now, whether that's true or not, we don't know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that Father Amorph, which was the chief exorcist over there in Rome, said that the devil had entered the church even at the highest level, at the highest levels. So what we see here is that we find out now that Monsignor Stephen Rossetti, the exorcist, a prominent exorcist here in the DC area, was fired. He was fired for talking about aliens and talking about UFOs, and so they fire him. So the thing is with this is like, if you don't think that if he did something wrong, that they would just speak to him and tell them to to refrain from speaking about those things instead of firing the guy who's their primary exorcist here in the DC area. He's a licensed psychologist. He's been a long time exorcist, serving for 15 years here in the Washington D.C. area. He founded a San Michael Center for Spiritual Renewal here in the D.C. area, and he was fired by the cardinal. Let me see if I can get his name. Let me see. Let's see if his name is here. Cardinal Robert McElroy. So he's the cardinal here. He removed Rossetti, and he ended all affiliation between them and St. Michael's Center. Now, come on, guys. There's something fishy about this. There's something, you just don't do these things unless allegedly you're working with Satan. You're working with Satan to remove this exorcist. There's a prominent exorcist here in the DC area. You remove them because he talked about UFOs. There's something going on here. And like I said from the beginning, there's either agents of Satan that know and work with Satan. There's there's people that don't know that they are working with Satan, and then there's demons and fallen angels. So now I leave that up to you. I leave that up to you. Why would they remove this prominent exorcist? Why would this cardinal and then disassociate himself from the St. Michael Center, which is their primary hub for exorcism? All right, there's something fishy about this. Anyways, I just wanted to bring you the news and for you to know what happened here, because this is the most absurd thing I heard. Right, and I'm not Catholic, by the way. I'm not Catholic, but this is a fellow warrior. This guy is fighting demons just like we fight demons. Okay, God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.